Okay, Jane, it's all yours.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I do have just a few PowerPoint slides, but mostly I want this to be interactive. And so if you have questions, please ask. Let me share this now. Let's see. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Great, great. So again, I'm Jane Euler. I am co-founder and one of the lead doula for a company called Present for You. We are a benefit LLC out of established in Delaware, and my two co-founders are one is a palliative care physician and the other is an attorney. And we provide serious illness companionship and end-of-life doula services. And if you want to know what that is, I don't know if you all are familiar with the word doula, which is of Greek origin and actually means servant or helper. And you may have heard about it in the birth space. Birth doulas have been around for a while and help a woman during labor and delivery with emotional support, non-medical. So an end-of-life doula does the same thing at the other end. We are a compassionate, non-judgmental presence, a guide, and an ally throughout the end-of-life transition. We at Present for You have taken it a little step further, and we do provide support more upstream, um, uh, maybe at onset of serious illness, changes in your life, aging. We are a supportive presence, an advocate, and a resource during the serious illness journey. We like to think of it as sort of a continuity of care. You have a partner throughout the journey of maybe aging, serious illness, palliative, hospice, end of life, and bereavement for loved ones. So we are actually a thing. We are defined by the National Hospice Palliative Care Organization. They say we are non-medical companions to the dying and their families who provide a wide range of holistic support that is complementary to hospice care. And a little bit of history with me. I got into this space back in 2018, having walked several people through this journey, not really knowing that there was a professional name for it, just being a companion. And if we think about it, this is sort of the way we used to do things. It was end of life was not necessarily a medical journey. It's a human one. And we used to be present with our loved ones, hundred years ago. So this isn't really new. It's more of a new concept in this sort of what we call a cottage industry and part of the good death movement, which started maybe about 20 years ago. So that's a little bit of history. So end of life doula support is a lot of things. My 30-second elevator pitch is that it's emotional, spiritual, psychosocial, practical, and logistical support. And what does that mean? So we can help, as I said, further upstream, advanced care planning discussions, spiritual, emotional, logistical support, conversations on life meaning, roles, and accomplishments, and what's going on in your life now and concerns. Help with legacy projects. That's one thing that I really like. I do work with people who are wanting to do some tangible project representative of their life to leave to their loved ones. We companion alongside someone who may be dying and their family. We provide presence, education on the dying process, referrals, resources, an advocate for end of life care wishes. Vigil is what we call sort of the transition phase of end of life. And sometimes people have specific wishes on how they want that to look like. So we can help with that and be an advocate for the person who's passing. And then we support families with grief processing. So this is some of the things we do. The superpower, I think, of doulas is that we come into situations without a prescribed role. We come in with an open heart, a listening ear, and no agenda. And we establish relationship through conversation there and then engage in what is most important for the family and the loved one, and then work in that space where we might be most effective. So, let's see, did I pass one? Yeah. So the benefits of working with a serious illness companion and end-of-life doula, a little bit that I just touched on. I think having another care partner who's been down this road before and been with others can help with anxiety and stress. I think that the more you talk about it, the more you plan, and we believe in conversations, multiple, repeat and rinse. You have a little bit more control on how this might be. Again, I mentioned sort of the continuity of care. It's customized, bespoke care to you and because you are unique. Everyone is unique. I believe in real talk instead of the medical talk, which we hear a lot, and support and education for family and caregivers. And we know the caregiver role is really difficult, so we do try very hard to support the caregiver. And then I just believe that human interaction, which is so important, we know as we are aging, the social, we as one of the goals of the villages, which I just heard is about, trying to avoid that social isolation that we do that happens as we age. We do have resources that we've personally worked with, for instance, maybe grief counselors or home care agencies or care management organizations, things like that. And then we serve as another voice along with the family if if the loved one's voice is unable to be heard, as an advocate. And, I go in and talk with people, and as I'm leaving, they always say, okay, so now you're part of my care circle, right? I can call you. Yes, absolutely. We're here for you. And I think that there is a little peace of mind with that. I mentioned legacy. Well, okay. One more slide before my legacy slide. So benefits of a present for you doula. We, took this concept of end of life support up further. I have a master's degree in palliative care, and so I believe in conversations early on. And so we can talk about care goals and explain hospice versus palliative. Understand the complicated medical system. And, when you enter a hospital, all these people you see, what's going on. Translate the medical terminology, explain the hospice Medicare benefit, talk about goals, cares of goal. What does quality of life look like for you? And assessments. There are layperson assessments that can be done that don't need to be done by medical professionals. And then, as I mentioned before, special considerations for the caregiver. And then understanding some of the various life-limiting diseases, which we all know about: cancer, COPD, heart failure, renal failure, and Alzheimer's, and the dementias. And we have a technical platform that we use, a care management record that we put our notes in, and so we have some transactional consistency and value there. We are a comforting presence, non-judgmental, family-centered, holistic care, whole person care. And we do work within a team. I have 5 other doulas that work with me at Present for You. And we can work together if need be to support you and your family. And we're a community resource, like I mentioned.
Jane, you've
Yeah.
mentioned working with families a number of times. How does what you do change when you're working with somebody who's all alone and doesn't have any family?
Right. Well, we become a very important person in their circle here, and be an advocate for them and support them. So I I think it's important, if you are alone, to seek that support early, so that when the time comes, your wishes can be realized for you. So I feel like the a single person going through this without a family close by is would benefit from this even more so, right? having light conversations on what's important to them, and then doing, maybe legacy projects, which is sort of, whoops, nope, sorry, I went too far. Let's see. How do I go back? Whoops. Well, I'll go back. Let's see. There we go. So legacy, I talked a little bit about legacy, kind of is, I love to talk about legacy. We do we do a dignity therapy, which is one of the only therapies that's been proven to bring about peace at end of life. So I think that's a really important thing to talk about. It talks about roles and accomplishments, not necessarily a life review, but it can be used as a document for one's life. Videos I've done, letters, help people write letters to loved ones, pictures, putting together quotes, a playlist, ideas are endless. So I'm all about the legacy part of this. And I should say that our company, Present for You, we do have a contract with Goodwin Hospice. So we do provide doula support to Goodwin Hospice patients. And we've had that contract for about 3 years now, and we've made over 2,000 visits to their patients. And I could go on and on about case studies, instances that we've had in making a difference in the lives of those people at end of life. For instance, today after this call, I'm going to visit a family whose loved one, a gentleman, is transitioning, and they want to have conversation with respect to sort of normalizing what's going to happen, and talking through what this is going to look like the next few days. And not that hospice can't do that, hospice can do that. But as I said earlier, it gets a little complicated with hospice because they are part of the medical system and part of a benefit, the hospice Medicare benefit. So they go into situations and they have a prescribed role. So the nurse has to go in and be a nurse. She doesn't get to sit down and have nice long conversations with the family on all of the things that are happening. She may go through all of that, he or she may go through all that information, and we come in and we are sort of augmenting or an extension of their services. Someone asked me, I didn't make this up, but I heard this somewhere a long time ago, that an end of life doula is a combination of a chaplain, a social worker, and eldest daughter. So I kind of like that. It sums up sort of where we are. Let's see. What else? Is there any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
We talked about people who were alone. What percentage of the people you've worked with have been solo clients?
So I'm not sure of the percentage, but I'll stop sharing. But a lot. And some examples are, I have a woman who lives in Arlington, as a matter of fact, who she does have family, but they're not close. And she has me come once every quarter to kind of go over her situation. She's not in hospice. And I videoed her and her wants and wishes, and have access to her documentation for when the time comes to be her advocate. She's got some very strict requirements on how she wants this to look and how she wants this to go. So I keep in touch with her, every 3 months or so. Then I've worked with several people that have family far away that can't get here because of various things, their lives, right, going on, raising children and jobs. And I'm always in touch with them too, as well as the loved one. But there is a need. There's a need for helping, I think, the solo agers. I think we're going to see more of them. I'm baby boomer, right? And I think a lot of us want this to be more of a human experience as opposed to a medical one. And I think it's very easy to get wrapped up in the medical system during this time. And so we can step back and have conversations on really what you want. And you do have more of a choice than you think. More of, I don't want to use the word control because we know nobody has control. But the more you talk about it, the more you plan, the more likely this it will happen the way you want it to. And we are committed to helping that. Um, did I answer the question? I think I did. Is there
Yeah, I
another
think
question?
so.
Yeah.
Do you help people navigate local, state, and federal agencies that are providing benefits to your clients?
So we can educate about that, but we're not really navigators. In that case, I would probably, have some referrals for care managers that do help and are experts and insurance people that are experts in that field. Yeah. So, but I do have some experience with long-term care, and of course, I know all about the Medicare hospice benefit and what that means and can have those conversations. But as far as navigating that, I would probably give resources for that.
Okay, and the next question was about how much you interact with people's executors and trust managers. Is that the same sort of answer, or?
Yeah, and not as much as you would think because that's sort of for at the end, right? So we're navigating, we're working with the person before that the estate takes over and the will and all of that. However, if none of that's been done, then absolutely we have, yes, referrals. We can talk to estate attorneys and refer people to estate attorneys and go through advanced care planning. Who do you want your medical power of attorney to be, and what does that really mean? And then we don't do that, though. I just want to say that right off the bat. Some care managers do, but we are not medical powers of attorney. So again, we are non-medical. Did I say that? I hope I did. We are non-medical. So we are emotional, spiritual, psychosocial, practical, logistical support. It's more of this human-based interaction to be part of a person's care circle and to help and advocate for them during a time that might be fraught with anxiety and emotions and needing more of a calming presence. So, yeah.
Okay. How do you get paid, and how
Okay.
much does a doula cost?
Right, right. Great question. So, just from the top, we are not licensed and we are not counselors, grief counselors, not part of the medical system, all of that. So, we are only certified by the organization that trains us. And there are many, many organizations out there that are doing end of life training. This sort of, you know, really became a huge thing during COVID, I believe. People were dying alone and everyone was like, oh no, this is terrible. And so how can we help? So a lot of people were trained as end of life doulas. There's a lot of organizations. So I was trained by one of the organizations early on, long before COVID. And I think that isn't a really appropriate organization. They do really good training. So my doulas have had that training, and then they also get a little training from present for you in the palliative space. So I do believe that so we're not paid by any insurance. We're not licensed, we're not paid by any insurance. So we do charge an hourly fee. Um, and that can be anywhere from $95 an hour to $130 an hour. It is negotiable because I believe everyone deserves a doula. And I would like this to be accessible and equitable to all people. And so, but saying that, Goodwin Hospice pays for our doula support to their patients. So that's one way to get doula support when you're in hospice with Goodwin, but your choice of which hospice you go with. We do uh, actually provide a little bit of a discount to those that maybe are referred by. We have an agreement with or an association with several other hospices, and also the palliative care group at Inova Shar, and neurology groups and oncology groups and things. So we try to make it accessible, but I do believe there's value. And I started down this path um, back in 2018, not knowing, I did 32 years in information technology before I went to this space, and started a new career and got my master's degree at age 60 in palliative care and wanted to make a difference. So I'm not as caught up with the money, but I do believe there's value in this, and I do believe we should be paid. So that's my spiel on that. Let's see. Those quarterly visits, is yes, yes. So we try to do that continuity of care. So the question was, those quarterly visits, is it the same doula? Absolutely. So, uh, you know, if you've established, it's all about relationship. And if you've established a relationship with someone, then that's part of our continuity of care. Yes.
I wanted to follow up on what you were just saying about getting paid. If somebody hires you, is there a minimum number of hours they're expected to have you come by, or is it a case by case thing?
Yeah, no, sir. No minimum number of hours. And maybe you don't ever use us, right? Or maybe it's a one-off conversation. That's okay too. We do have a letter of agreement that says that you don't owe us any minimum. Use us or not. It's totally up to you. I, it depends on the situation. So sometimes I'll visit a family maybe every week for about 4 weeks. And then there's maybe a break. And then maybe the person starts to transition and I go 3 days in a row. It really is dependent upon the situation, which and every situation is unique. So it's hard for me to kind of say that, but you are not at all legally required with this agreement to use us. Definitely not. And I see one family. I haven't seen her in about a year. I touch base. We text occasionally, and she's doing well. And she's got a slow progressive disease, and so I'm keeping in touch with her. And I go to see her when she wants to have a talk and kind of regroup and think and say where we are and what we're doing and have things changed. Yes, so.
Next question is, could you talk a little bit more about your staff, who they are, and how do you find people to be doulas?
Great question too. I believe that doulas can be representative of community, and we know that there is an accessibility and an equity in healthcare, especially at end of life. So I have a diverse group of doulas. African American woman, LGBTQ, someone who speaks Spanish, a gentleman who has been in mediation his entire life that plays the guitar, if you want the music aspect of this, a retired physician who has in the middle of getting his ordination. So a diverse group of people that we think are pretty representative of community. I'd love a Muslim doula, actually. So I'm looking for that if anyone knows. So we come in with cultural humility, though. I worked with a woman outside of hospice out in Leesburg who was in that large Guatemalan community in Leesburg. She let me into her home and I didn't speak her language or know her culture, and she was beautiful and her daughter was, and I ended up teaching her daughter and helping to pay for her training as an end of life doula so she can be a resource in that community for those that don't understand what hospice is, and some are undocumented, and so there's that whole worry there. So she's now a doula in that community, which that makes my heart feel good doing that. So we are diverse, and I do try to kind of work that out if someone has a request. Sometimes it's a geography issue too. So three of my doulas are in the Alexandria area, one's in Annandale. I'm sort of Fairfax Falls Church, and One's in Silver Spring, one's in DC. So we do have folks in different areas as well.
And we had a question about what kind of licensing or certification is required, and I think you addressed that a few minutes ago and said,
Right.
there is no professional licensing. You're certified by the company that trained you. But my follow-on question to that is, if I'm looking for a doula, how do I vet the different ones that I may dig up?
Yeah, great question as well. So there are a couple organizations that are membership organizations for doulas. One is the National End of Life Doula Alliance, NEDA, NEDA, and they have a list of doulas in different states. But if you're looking to hire someone, I think you want to go through the same thing that you do with anyone you're hiring in this type of space. Vet them, make sure that they've had experience, make sure that they've had experience with sort of maybe what's going on with you, how long have they been doing this, what is their background, what is their education, and how many and get references if you need. So it's like anything else that you want to hire someone for. Uh, I highly recommend you get references.
Have any of your clients asked about sourcing psychedelics for end-of-life anxiety? And if so, are you able to help them?
Yes, so I have had experience with that. And I have a woman who is a nurse who I refer people to that would like to do something like that. I am a firm believer in outside the box thinking, and if that's going to help, then I'm all about referring you to resources. This again is about you, not me, and we want to mirror you and help you resolve issues if that's the way you want to do this. So yeah, I have resources for
Okay.
that as well.
What percentage of your clients end up dying in hospital versus in hospice versus at home?
Yeah, great question as well. So depending on where you are, we meet you where you are, right? So every now and then I'll have a person who really refuses hospice, absolutely refuses hospice till the very, very end. And my goal with them is to get them the care they need with respect to symptom control, because hospice does really good symptom control, symptom management. So uh, if someone does end up going to the hospital, what I recommend is you don't go to the ER or ICU. You go into regular part of the hospital, and if you want to die there, die there. But don't make it. You can go in and request things, and I have helped people navigate that. They don't want you to die in a hospital, right? They try everything they can, but you can navigate that a little bit more than you think as far as, I have a DNR, I don't want this, I'm ready to die. So we can talk about that. Most folks that are in hospice already don't call 911 and don't go to the ER. Some do in extreme cases, and they do die there. I have sat in the ICU. I haven't sat in the ER. I did sit with a gentleman in the ICU who took a dive, took a turn, unknowing, just out of the blue. Was with his father-in-law and his wife and his two children in the ICU, working alongside the social worker there, and he did pass in the ICU. But mostly, so if you're in hospice, that means you're at home or you're at wherever you call home, and they're coming to visit you. So there is no, in this area, hospice house where you can go and live your last 3 months. It's really a shame. That's my dream to create something like that, but there is no such thing in Northern Virginia. So you're either going to die in, your home, which most people prefer, but not everyone, or wherever you call home. Your skilled nursing center, assisted living, where CCRC, wherever you call home. So it's hard to say the percentages, but not very many end up in the hospital because we have had conversations about this. We have normalized what's going to happen and what the family's going to see, how the person may be feeling, and how there could be a drop, a decline, and what that looks like. So, I mean, I've been at the bedside of many, many people who have passed, and at the very end, it's the same, but getting there can be a little bit different. So we want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. I'm all about enabling the family or the care circle, the friends care circle, to be able to navigate this.
Are you on call 24 hours a day?
So a little bit, yeah. I have been at 2 o'clock in the morning at the bedside of someone, so we can do that if that is needed, required. However, I like to be involved earlier on so that there isn't this 11th hour, need. Like I just said, in educating people is part of my job, educating. Uh, but we can be available 24/7. Yes.
Okay. Now, I noticed, Melissa, you've had your hand up for quite a
Oh,
while.
sorry, Melissa.
If you want to unmute and ask your question.
Hi, I do. I apologize for the noise in my background. Um, Amanda, Amanda, can you stop for a few minutes? Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're not hearing any
Yes.
background noise, so
Okay, that's great. So thank you for doing this. I also am a certified end-of-life doula, and I think it's really wonderful to see the educational outreach. I tend to focus on that in my practice. I divide my time between Arlington and Florida, and recently held an end-of-life festival here and things of that nature. I wanted to try to help connect some of your thoughts in a way that might be supportive. I think what you're doing is awesome. So 20% of baby boomers do not have children. A really important statistic because we know then that there's a huge cohort in our demographic that is going to need extra support at the end of life, which makes doulas so much more valuable. Most people who go on hospice wait until the last 10 days to 2 weeks, and they deny themselves an enormous amount of support and preparation for end of life, which can be so very, very helpful. We like to say that if you want a positive end of life, that will happen to the extent that you prepare for it. It doesn't happen accidentally. So everything you're teaching here today is all about preparation and planning. You can begin planning as you enter your senior years or upon a terminal diagnosis. Sometimes today, terminal diagnoses can have 10 or 20 years down the road, and you can plan and visit as you described yearly or bi-yearly or whenever to revisit the plan and see if it's still valid. Most people want to die at home. The overwhelming majority of people want to die at home, but close to 80% of them, or even more, I'm not exactly sure, the statistics end up in a hospital because they haven't made a plan for dying at home and having that support at the very end of life. It's all about planning. We plan for birth at the beginning of life, classes, nesting, all kinds of parties, everything around it. But at the other end of life, we just kind of our Western culture has taught us denial for many, many years. So thank you for what you're doing. I don't want to say too much, but I just wanted to tell you, I think it's really wonderful that you're doing this. And thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you for what you're doing as well. And you're exactly right. I think that we planning and that's what we are all about, doulas, conversation, and let's talk about this off early and often so that your needs can be met. I do think that I'm very, very conscious of my role as a mirror to someone. So I do, respect someone's choices. If they decide they want to do this, then I'm with them. But if we do have conversations, and I do appreciate someone making an informed, educated decision, and that's up to them. this is their journey and they get to live it the way they want to, right? And I can be supportive in that space. So I'm all about being an advocate and I'm all about autonomy and personhood and dignity till the end of life. So, and we do know we have a little bit of control, but not much. But again, planning makes it, known to, and conversation makes it known to everyone, and it's more likely to go the way that you want it to go if you have those plans. Thank you, Melissa.
How much do you coordinate with funeral homes and, funeral planning and those kinds of things?
So, right. So, I have a resource and I refer people to that resource quite a bit in the Northern Virginia area. There's a woman who runs a funeral home who's awesome and quite um, proficient and efficient and not costly in this space. I see some issues with the old-timey funeral homes and the expense and the charges and whatever. So I'm all about making it more affordable, and I have a woman that I send people to. Having said that, a lot of people that are already in this space have picked out a funeral home, and we are often asked to go to funerals after we have supported someone, but not so much in the funeral planning stage. And in fact, that's a little bit out of our scope, although we can direct people to that. And there are some doulas who have um, uh, found that as a little bit of a niche for them. That's not mine, but other doulas do. So I would connect you with someone who can do that funeral planning with you.
Do you offer services to low income people, and is there any specific outreach to the homeless and disability communities?
Right, right. So I did. I've given presentations to various groups with disabilities. I believe that this should be accessible. Um, we have we're in doing some collaboration with some of the larger organizations, and NELDA is the International End of Life Doula Association, which we collaborate with. They have they got a grant to help those experiencing homelessness in the Philadelphia area. And so we're trying to combine with them. But in this area, um, we have not been able to do that to collaborate with someone to reach out to those experiencing homelessness. But we do have a mission, and I'm all about that. And if someone has ideas on how to make that happen, we do offer services to low income. As I said, it's all negotiable, sliding scale, if it, and because I believe everyone, deserves a doula. So there have been times when I have been into situations where I didn't charge. This particular Guatemalan family out in Leesburg was one of those. So I, I would like to do more. I will tell you, maybe it's too much information, but a little bit of the history. So I started my company in 2018. I just basically hung up a shingle, and then I got my first call, and I got some mentorship, and I was able to get more education, and I kept getting more and more education. And I aligned with my two co-founders with Present for You back in 21, and we our goal was really to help the underserved, that because we do believe doulas can be representative community. But we had to figure out how to make this a business. What does the model look like? And it ended up, after various years and going back and forth and pivoting, we ended up in the hospice space. And so that's been sort of our model up until just to get us going and to get the name out there. But we're all about being open to other, situations. And, I try to get the word out. And I feel like I've been screaming this from the rooftops, for years. And still people don't know that we exist and know that we can help even those that are, experiencing, low income, marginalized folks in this area. So I I don't know what else to do other than do these types of things to get the word out and spread the word that, there are folks that can help you from from the human aspect. There are a bunch of lovely resources through the counties, as you all know, and so I'd love to be connected with county governments, as a resource. But still, baby steps and people understanding exactly what this is and basically embracing it. That's kind of what we need right now. So, yeah.
Is there anybody like you in Montgomery County that you could recommend?
I have a doula who lives in Montgomery County. Yes, absolutely. My organization, he started with me many years ago in the Silver Spring area, and he does a lot of uh, volunteering for Heartland Hospice in the Montgomery County area. But yeah, Montgomery County and DC, I have resources. I have another lovely woman in Bethesda who is a doula. She doesn't practice with me, but she's awesome. And yeah, definitely. If you want to reach out to me, absolutely.
Yeah, if you could maybe put your slide with your contact info back up.
Okay, back up. Okay, should I do that now?
Yeah,
Okay,
give everybody a chance to take
okay,
notes.
all right. Okay. Can you see that?
It's still coming up. There we go.
Okay,
Perfect.
okay, great.
So we're about 13 minutes to 11. So I don't know if there are any other topics you'd like to touch on or, common misperceptions or anything else that you haven't gotten to.
Yeah, oftentimes I get questions about liability. So I just want to address that. We are non-medical, right? And we do hugging and we do hand holding and sometimes some light mouth care, but we're not like a CNA or a home health aide. So we do have insurance. We have liability insurance. My company does, and each one of us, the doulas do. So that's always seems to be a question. There is liability is not really part of this because we are really non-medical. So this is, spiritual, psychosocial, and I'm all about. I believe that end of life is a spiritual journey, and I love to talk about that. I love to talk about one's life. I Everyone has a story. Everyone has had an extraordinary life. I love to hear those stories and document those stories as you are part of humanity. And let's recognize it and bring dignity to it, and make this happen in a way that you want it to happen. So I'm all about conversation and relationship and mutual trust and respect. That's what it's all about. And that goes to our whole social isolation thing. I sometimes I sit there for companionship. I sat with a gentleman yesterday and we did have some very deep conversations on death and dying, but we also had conversations on life and his sons and his granddaughter, and you could see his face light up. So there is companionship as well in this space. Any other thoughts, questions?
Well, comment here,
Yeah,
end-of-life doulas generally don't administer medicine and usually don't do personal care the way home health aides do.
right. Exactly. But having been in that space, we know what should be being done, right? So we can educate and direct. So,
Okay, yeah, so I was going to say, so if you see something that's not being attended to,
right.
you can call attention to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always, I go into a lot of facilities, and I'm a big advocate for those that are not being what I see as clean enough or being cared for in a manner that should be. And I gently have those conversations with staff. And if I need to, go to the manager, or if I need to, call the hospice if they're in hospice, and have those types of conversations. If I go into a situation where I don't think that the person is their pain is being managed, I'm on the phone with hospice. If they're in hospice or palliative, whoever they're getting treatment from, I educate families on what that pain may look like and that things to look out for pain expressions and anxiety, and can educate in that. I went to as Melissa said, people go into hospice way too late. They don't get the benefit of it. It's quite a shame. So part of my goal is trying to get people into hospice at the appropriate time. But occasionally, there are people that fall through the cracks. And there was one case of a gentleman who went into Goodwin Hospice on a Friday, and they wanted a doula on Saturday. And I went there on Saturday, and he was actively dying, and the family did not know it. The two 40-something daughters and the wife never been around anyone that was actively dying. So I was able to gently educate them on what I was seeing and call hospice, because when the hospice nurse had left on Friday, he wasn't dying, and then he took a turn that night, and the family just didn't really understand what was happening. So I was able to discuss that with them, and they were so grateful that I was there and that they were alerted to this. Otherwise, they would not have known. And so the hospice nurse came, she confirmed, yes, he's dying. They got him on different meds or more meds and made him comfortable. And the one daughter was flying back to London that afternoon, and I said, what is your goal? What do you want to do here? She ended up staying, and he died at 10 o'clock that night. So, and surrounded by both his daughters and son-in-laws and his wife, and they sent me such nice text about thanking me for alerting them and being there. So I do sometimes happen to be at the right place at the right time, and that continues to be sort of my direction here. I For what it's worth, I believe I've been divinely directed to do this, and I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be at 65, and doing this work, because it really is transformational to me and my heart, and really helps you appreciate living in the moment, which I talk about a lot, and living in silence with yourself and understanding your needs, wants, and wishes as we age. So,
Okay, one other piece of this whole picture that um, people rarely talk about is somebody who's in intractable pain and it's only going to get worse and they don't want to live any longer. Now, assisted suicide is not legal in Virginia, but there are other places where it is. Do you ever interact with that kind of situation?
all the time, all the time. So it's not assisted suicide in this country. It's aid and dying. It's medical aid
Right.
and dying, and it is legal in DC. You have to have residency requirements. I work with the main prescriber in DC and have been at the bedside of many dozens of people who have decided to die with dignity, use that law in DC. Um, uh, Vermont does not have a residency requirement. I have an inroad to Vermont. I've actually gone with someone to Vermont to do death dignity, and then Oregon doesn't have a residency requirement. I'm part of a group of doulas that support MAID across the country, so I'm in a collaborative with them, and again feel very, very I'm a proponent of this, and I believe everyone has the right to die with dignity. And if you're what the language in the bill says, if you describe yourself as intolerable, undergoing intolerable suffering, that's you. I listen to you, and you get to go through the process and decide to end your life on a day that you choose. So I'm all about that. I would travel to Zurich. I have another uh, doctor that I work with who is all about the Switzerland choices of voluntarily assisted death. VAD is what it's called in Europe, and I I work with him closely. He's gone to visit, and he can tell you all about that as if you need a resource for that. Um, it won't be on the ballot in Virginia. They've already nixed it in January for, it did go through the Senate subcommittee. It did not pass the Senate committee, full committee, unfortunately. And then it was introduced in the House and the Senate, but the House, because the Senate nixed it, it's not happening this year in Virginia, maybe next year. Um, so DC, it is legal in DC. You have to go through all the requirements. You have to be a resident of DC. And if you look on end of life options, dc.org, you can find the bill and all the different requirements. There's about 20 different requirements, two of which you need to use for the prescribing doctor to assess that you are a legal resident of DC. I go into DC all the time to help people who have chosen to do this. The main prescriber and I have a really nice alignment, and she believes doulas are very valuable in this space, so she refers her clients to me, her patients to me. So yeah, I've supported people who decide to do VSED. I'm all about that again. The one thing that I have learned about voluntarily stopping eating and drinking is how much a 24/7 support group is needed. So I have had three that went really well and one that didn't because she wanted more control and it wasn't happening fast enough and she didn't have the support she needed, uh, even though we had discussed that. So it is an option. And, everyone, I constantly hear doctors say, oh, that's a terrible way to die. That has not been my experience. If you are supported and we've got you palliative, we've got you medicated in the proper way, it's not a horrible way to die. It doesn't, it takes longer than you think. So maybe that's what everyone is thinking. I've had a woman take 9 days. I've had a woman take 11 days. I had a woman take 16 days. So it does depend. Depends on the age, the biology, the disease, all of those things. So, but I do have experience with that and would support anyone who chooses to do that.
All right. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. So if anybody's got one last question, now's the time.
Yes, and it is .co. That's confusing to people. Sorry. I hope I've said, it's a lot of information dense here. I hope that it's been clear enough and that you all will, pass along, if you don't need, pass along this type of resource to folks that may need it, especially, yes, the solo agers. And I would appreciate that. And email me, text me. I'm here.
Okay. Well, I think with that, we'll go ahead and stop the recording and